The young nurse suddenly realized that the assistant who had been working beside her every day was actually Jewish. In that environment, Jews were the very people Germany was systematically eliminating. As a German nurse, Xia Li knew perfectly well that by the rules, she was required to report it. But after months of working together, she had already come to see her assistant as a friend. Xia Li couldn't bring herself to personally send her friend away. At the same time, she didn't dare defy the orders of the state. From that moment on, Xia Li was trapped in a painful inner conflict. Every day after that, whenever she stood beside her assistant, her heart was torn in two. She hesitated again and again. In the end, she chose to tell the head nurse and revealed the assistant's true identity. The crushing guilt nearly took her breath away. She wanted to warn her to leave immediately, but the words caught in her throat and never came out. And at that very moment, German soldiers sent to make the arrest appeared. The instant the assistant saw them, she understood everything. She simply looked at Xia Li without saying a single word. That look alone was enough to break Xia Li completely. She kept apologizing, but nothing could change what had already happened. As she watched her assistant being taken away, for the first time, she began to question whether the choice she had made was truly the right one. A few days later, one afternoon, Xia Li noticed a severely wounded Soviet prisoner among the soldiers waiting for treatment. Instinctively, she reached for bandages, wanting to stop the bleeding first. But before she could act, the military doctor stopped her on the spot. Coldly, he told her that supplies were scarce and precious medicine could not be wasted on the enemy. Hearing this, Xia Li could only stand there in silence, unable to say a word. She kept turning back, looking at the dying prisoner, her eyes filled with helplessness and anger. That night, Xia Li was in the hospital ward when she encountered a wounded soldier. He claimed he was from the so-called Ghost Division. While she was changing his bandages, the injured soldier suddenly told her that their daily orders were to clean up Jews, men or women, adults or children. No one was spared. Hearing this, Xia Li froze in place. Almost instantly, she thought of the Jewish female assistant she had personally reported and watched being taken away. Only at that moment did she truly realize that her decision back then but had very likely ended a human life with her own hands. The guilt she had already been carrying completely erupted in that instant, turning into crushing self-blame. It was also that night that Xia Li lit her first cigarette. Seeing her condition, a friend at her side kept trying to comfort her. The friend told her that Jews were a burden on the nation, and for the future of the fatherland, someone had to do these things. But now, there was no turning back. All she could do was tell herself over and over that it was for the country. Just when Xia Li was at her most helpless and most tormented, Winter, the man she had secretly admired for so long, suddenly appeared in front of her. The moment she saw him, it was as if her emotions were pulled back into reality, and the pain in her heart was temporarily pushed aside. But it didn't take long for her to sense that something was wrong. Winter's attitude toward her had clearly grown distant. His words were careful and restrained, and the closeness they once shared seemed to have vanished. Just as Xia Li gathered her courage and prepared to confess her feelings, Winter spoke first. He said there were new orders with the unit, and that he had to leave immediately. She was just about to say the words she had been holding in her heart for so long to Winter, when Winter suddenly said that he had an urgent matter and had to leave immediately. The moment those words were spoken, Xia Li felt as if a heavy weight pressed down on her chest. She forced herself to stay composed, then pretended to be casual and said, "I have a lot to take care of too." Seeing this, Winter's younger brother hurried over to stop her. He couldn't understand it at all. They had grown up together. They clearly cared about each other. So why had things suddenly become so distant and cold? But no matter how much his brother tried to persuade her, Winter never said a word. In the end, Xia Li looked at Winter one last time in disappointment, said nothing more, and turned away. In truth, Winter loved Xia Li just as deeply, but he knew all too well that as a soldier, he could die on the battlefield at any moment. He didn't want to drag Xia Li into a life of constant fear and loss, so he chose to deliberately keep his distance, but none of this was known to Xia Li. All she felt was that a once intimate relationship had suddenly become unfamiliar and cold. 5 months passed in the blink of an eye. Then one day, among the wounded, Xia Li saw Winter's younger brother. He was barely clinging to life, his strength almost completely gone. The military doctors had already given up on him, because in their eyes, his chances of survival were almost zero. They decided to save their efforts for patients who had a better chance of living, but Xia Li simply could not accept that outcome. She kept begging the doctors, pleading again and again, asking them to try one more time. Seeing the tears in her eyes, the doctor finally nodded, agreeing to do everything they could. After that, Xia Li sat outside the operating room, anxiously waiting for the result, as time seemed to stretch endlessly. When the surgery finally ended, the doctor walked out and gently nodded at her. In that moment, the weight on Xia Li's heart finally lifted. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she couldn't help but throw her arms around the doctor in a tight embrace. The soldier was so weak that even his breathing was barely noticeable. He was hanging by a thread. The army doctor had practically given up on saving him. In his eyes, there was almost no chance the soldier would pull through. He needed to save his limited time and supplies for the patients who actually had a shot at surviving. But Sherry couldn't stay as calm as the doctor. She watched a young life slip away right in front of her. Her heart felt twisted in knots. She kept begging the doctor to try again. The worry and helplessness on her face were impossible to ignore. Seeing her tear-filled eyes, he finally let out a long sigh and agreed to give the soldier one more chance. Sherry paced anxiously outside the operating room. Every minute felt like an eternity. When the doctor came out and gave her a nod, her heart finally settled. She rushed forward and hugged him. She was overwhelmed with gratitude. Then she hurried to the bedside and sat with the unconscious soldier, clinging to hope. She didn't know how long she waited. Eventually, the soldier's eyes slowly opened, but the first thing he said stabbed straight into her heart. "Winter is gone." The words hit Sherry like a bolt of lightning. Her legs nearly gave out. The world seemed to dim around her. It was as if all color had drained away. The little hope she'd been holding on to came crashing down. Months of torment passed. Winter's brother eventually managed to walk again and was cleared to go home to recover. After saying goodbye, Sherry couldn't hold it together anymore. She sat alone, crying quietly as she held Winter's photo. No matter how hard she cried, the man who once made her heart race was never coming back. Crushed by the pain of losing Winter, Sherry finally broke down. After fighting it for so long, she chose to accept the army doctor. He had confessed his feelings long ago, but her heart had always belonged to Winter, so she never considered him before. Now she desperately wanted new love to fill the emptiness and dull the ache in her chest. But even after Sherry had met with the doctor, Winter's face kept flashing. She realized she wasn't alone. Maybe she'd never be able to love anyone again. But unbelievably, just 1 month later, on an ordinary afternoon, Winter, the man she thought she'd lost forever, stood right in front of her, alive, as if he had walked straight back from the edge of death.